All right, we want to start. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I am hoping that Margaret will come on today. Today we'll take a different frame because we are going to continue talking about high functioning depression, but we are going to talk about it in the context of we want to talk about it in the context of career, the unique challenges of managing depression as a female leader or a career professional. And so, what I did to make sure that more persons benefited from it, is that I actually did a poll in my network and asked persons to send out questions, which I'm trying to find at this time, and I would answer those questions. And so that is where we are. And so, for those who are just joining, or for the first time, I am Dr. Marcia Thomas, and I'm a Christian leadership consultant, life and career coach. I really am an individual that really works with female leaders and executives 40 and over who are trying to identify, press into, and live their purpose and make it profitable. I I'm in a second part series because we are just finished in a series that spoke about purpose, how we confuse our role with our purpose, and how we identify our purpose, and how we make strategic actions and plans to fulfill our God given calling while making it profitable, and the areas of self care that are important in. So, right now, as it is, what I find is that we looked at high functioning depression last week, and we made sure that we clarified that it is a condition where persons function normally, but inwardly they struggle with the things that bother them. And some of these persons, most of them, it affects entrepreneur business persons, executive CEO, and persons that have a lot of responsibility, that is, or those who have a lot of people dependent on them. I focus on how it affects women in the sense that they have a greater pull and a greater need to balance faith, their personal and professional lives, with their faith and their community, and that balance can create problems. We say that these are really persons simply because as they seek to balance, they handle grief differently, they handle loss, they handle promotion, they handle transitions differently, and have to do this while engaged in their leadership roles. And so I placed the poll out there, and we are now looking at the hidden factors or struggles of high functioning depression in females. And we want to talk about that. And so, as I said, I will be looking at the questions today. And there are really five basic questions that persons ask, and we're going to make an attempt to answer them today. The first question, because I want to cover there, I have at least 15 questions here, and I want to cover as many as I can. Good morning, Michelle. Thanks for joining. So I want to cover as many of these questions as I can. And so the first question that we have is, somebody asks, of how do I recognize the signs of high functioning depression in myself and others? And those who want to join us on the stage, Leslie, if you like, the link is in the post. And also, I can put it here also. So those who would like to join. All right. Margaret has a little issue with her device, so as soon as she can, she will join us. So I've put the link right there. All right. So We are right there now, and we are going to be talking, answering the questions. So, the first question that the person is asking, this female, because as I said, I did a poll in my network and persons responded. And so, this is the nature of the program today. And I'm looking at the questions. All right, just give me 1 second. Let me let me see if I can bring in Margaret because she's right there, but I'm not seeing her. Okay. Mm.
Hi, Dr. Marcia. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that.
Yes, that's fine. These things happen in these times. And I see Dr. Leslie. Thank you so much for joining, Leslie. Good.
I
As
guess
we
I'm here waiting for you to figure the part.
yes. So we are here. And as I said before, I thank you, Margaret, for joining. And I thank you, Dr. Leslie, for coming up. All right. So Margaret is and Leslie are my resident specialists today as we go through this topic. What has happened, as I was saying to my audience, is that there are persons who I had asked. I had done a poll and I had asked persons, hi Curtis, to just ask questions that I will make an attempt to answer. And so I don't know everything. And so I had actually reached out to Margaret, and I thank you so much, Margaret. As soon as we go ahead, you would introduce yourself, and Leslie, you want to tell people what you want them to know about you. And so the first question that I got was, how do I recognize the signs of high functioning depression in myself and others? And so I am saying that it is hard to recognize because you, as I say, you appear to be functioning normally on the surface, but there are some common signs that I looked at very briefly last week that we can use to know that we are suffering from high functioning depression. For me, I did a lot of work. I consumed myself in work. I left my house early and I left work very late. That was one of the signs for me. And at the time, I really didn't understand that it was high functioning depression. The next issue that I had is that I had a lot of unexplained aches and pains. And I went to several doctors and they recognized one doctor, and I don't want to appear biased, but one doctor who was really on the Christian side said to me, you're not sick. What is the stress? What is the issue you're having? Once you are able to find it, your symptoms will begin to leave you. And then I discovered that the source of my problem was my work. And the moment I began to put that in order and began to plan an exit, I began to lose some of the aches and pains and the stomach issues. Margaret, what are some of the other signs that you would want to tell them that are the signs of high functioning depression? Please
Thank
introduce
you.
yourself and answer. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Marcia. My name is Margaret Martinez. I'm a proud mom, and I am also the founder of Unforgettable You LLC. I'm also a podcast host, and I'm a community builder and a branch ambassador with Go Brunch. I am it could just go on and on, but I really want to get to what you're asking. And that's really a good question. What are the signs, right, of high functioning depression, right? Um, for me, my signs were I would get very fatigued, just very, like I had no energy. And that's not like me. I'm a high energy person.
Hmm.
So that was that for sure. If you're a high energy person, and the opposite too, right? If you're mostly, a calm, serene person, but then you also can get a high energy, like a lot of comedians, if you will. they're high energy, right? They're always constantly trying to make somebody laugh and everything. That's a sign of depression, because normally that's not, their personality. So my personality is the opposite. It's high functioning. It's like, hi, how you doing? Just but when I'm tired, and when I just, let others get to me, and I keep thinking over and over and over about it, I get like really fatigued, my energy is drained. So that's a for sure sign of that. Yeah. So you're right. I mean, when you said that you become ill, you become sick, because it affects your immunity, right? Your immune system, it'll affect that. So, yeah, that was a sign of me. I didn't have energy. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to do anything. I was just, but when people would call me and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" I'd be like, "I'm fine. How are you?" And tried to appear like nothing was wrong. Like I was okay. Everything was okay. Everything's okay. So yeah,
All right.
smiling.
Yes. There are also signs that persons have in that their patterns change. So they are always smiling, and what happens is their sleep patterns change, and their eating might also change. And so that is a sign that we must also pay attention to. And then there is the issue of when it gets real difficult, that we are not meeting our deadlines or completing our tasks. We find ourselves procrastinating a lot. All right, so I'm looking to the next question. What are the unique challenges of managing depression as a female executive, and how can I overcome them? So some of the unique challenges that I find that female executives face in my environment and those who I tend to coach, they have issues with the expectations in their workplace, the gender bias that they are experiencing, and the fact that they have no one to speak to, because as the hierarchy goes up and up, they are men, and these men are not seeming to understand the issues. They feel that they are making excuses and justifications, and so there is in their mind a lack of support when you are seated with men and you are at the same level. She also feels that there is some amount of, some of them feel that there is some amount of condescension, and that there seem to be this tolerance, this bland tolerance, where you're expected to take instructions and you're not really expected to solve problems. And so when you're solving problems, you are seen as acting as if you're a male, and being quite subordinate with persons that are your equal or on the same plane with you. And there is the pressing and abiding difficulty of balancing your family responsibilities with your career without feeling guilty. And when you're not able to cook the dinner, so they miss the dinner is not cooked for several evenings, or you miss a doctor's appointment. Those are some of the issues that they have. What about you, Margaret? What would you say are the unique challenges of managing depression as a female executive? That's a question that the lady asks, this executive have asked. We're trying to answer as many as we can today.
Can you
Thank
hear
you
me?
for that question.
It's
Can you guys?
what are the unique challenges of managing depression as a female executive, and how can I overcome them? Did you hear that?
Who are you asking? Are you asking Mark?
Margaret, I was asking Margaret.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. So one of the great points that you pointed out is keeping the household, and your responsibilities at home, and trying to manage that. If you are, and there's a lot of other variables with that, right? If you're married, then you're a wife, that's another responsibility. In the workplace, you have that responsibility. You have responsibility to your clients, to your colleagues, to your team. You have responsibilities for, if you have children, anything, so that's gonna suffer. If you have any internal if you're struggling internally, that's definitely going to, you're going to feel emotionally depleted. So trying to maintain those relationships and trying to connect, because you're disconnected at this point, so it's making it harder. So now you're masking everything, right?
Mhm.
Because who you are in the home life is not who you are in the workplace. You can't, take, like, I can't do my mom role while I'm talking to my team and we're having team meetings. I can't, so we wear many hats, as women in different areas. Even if you're a caretaker, suppose you're a caregiver for your parent, your elderly parent, or your child, that is another thing too. There's so many things. And I feel that having to deal with those things, it's it it's reaching out, right? It's trying not to mask that, trying to really get in tune with what you're internally struggling with. So these are some of the challenges that we have to face. And I also want to say, as a Christian woman like yourself, that a lot of these things in our mind are, our mind. I play that song, Liar, because these are some of the lies, that now all of a sudden we're feeling like we're not living up to the expectation, or up to the title of, or up to the status of, right? And I feel like, um we're so much more than that, right?
Yeah.
And it's really good to just pause, take a pause, and
Yes.
realize, hey, and reach out to people like you, because your struggles are not my struggles, Dr.
Mhm.
Marcia.
Very
My
much
struggles
so.
are not yours. So if I reach out to you, you probably have a better insight, and a lot of wisdom that can help me out. And you know and vice versa, because we're not in the situation. So I feel that with all of those struggling, even as an executive woman, if you can just pause, take a deep breath, look internally and reach out, if you can. Sometimes I can't reach out. Sometimes it's, I have been in that position too. So what I do is I meditate, and I pray, and I just, calm myself, and I become, and I talk to myself. I really do. I'll be like, this is who you really are. This is how you're really created. So doing that actually makes me realize, you know, the clarity. It brings clarity to the things that are true and real. Thank you so much for that question.
Very much so. And in my free model that I really use with my clients, I have the F being focused and free, because sometimes the letting go that you're talking about, Margaret, you realize you're human, and you just accept the things you cannot change. There are some things, no matter how you beat around the bush, no matter how you strive, no matter how you fight, no matter how you try to communicate and connect, no matter how impossible you want to make, how possible you want to make the impossible, it just can't be. You're just pouring into a calling that does not exist. It's not yours. You can't force people to change. They have to want to change. And you can't force circumstances to change if you don't take action. And sometimes you just have to accept that I have to let that go. It's no longer useful. That's part of the issue too. What do you say, Leslie? What's one of the
Amen.
unique traits? I'll take you back, Margaret. I just want to hear from Leslie. What is one unique challenge that high functioning females have that is embedded in their depression, that they find it difficult to share? Because that is a question that was asked by this person. What are the unique challenges of managing depression as a female executive, and how can I overcome them? So we have several other questions, so we want to answer that, and then we want to move to a very important question that I want to highlight, because this is so important. In the meantime, as you prepare, Leslie, I want to welcome Lisa. We did welcome Michelle, and she did put a comment in that talked about being lethargic, and so that is also important, being lethargic. All right. And she's saying also, we have Charito, thank you so much for joining. I did welcome Curtis. I see some other persons come in, and so go ahead for me, Leslie.
I think Margaret answered it.
All
Oh,
right, good. And I see Stephen also. Thank
so
you. All
perhaps
right.
you will ask me the next question.
Yes, I want us to dig into this question because this was really an interesting question. The person asked, because I didn't allow them to talk about their names and I to indicate who they are. I just want them to talk about and what is the answer that they want. How do they want their answer to be cemented? And so this person is saying, because there are several questions, but I want to dig this in just in the event I don't get the time, because she said she wanted to be able to deal with her issues and still remain private. So I'm trying to find that question. Just give me a minute. I wrote them down, but I seem to have missed that question. So she's saying, recently I am grieving. I have lost two close members of my family, my father and an aunt. How can I manage my depression while maintaining a high level executive position? She says, I need strategies for coping with symptoms, managing stress, and maintaining a work life balance while keeping my depression private. That is yours, Leslie. Do I need to repeat the question?
No, no, I'm not capable of answering that. I'm not a professional. I'm not sure, what high functioning depression. I've not been trained in this, so all I would do is give you, you know 50 years of experience. But that this subject for me is out of my purview. I'm not a professional therapist, and so I could look it up. I would That's what I was doing, was trying to find what are the symptoms of high functioning depression. I don't feel that I am the right person to
Oh,
answer
that
that.
question. Good. So I'll just give you another when the time comes. All right, Margaret, do you want to dig in a little?
What was your question, Dr.
The
Marcia?
question is, she said she has been grieving recently. She lost two members of her family, her father and an aunt. So how can she manage her depression while maintaining a high level executive position? So she says, I need strategies for coping with symptoms, managing stress, and maintaining a work life balance while keeping my depression private.
Wow. Well, first of all, condolences for all of that and everything that she's grieving. That has to be very hard and heavy, for a professional, and trying to juggle everything and trying to remain private is just very, so it's just heartening to hear that. But I I feel that in that situation, I'm hoping, if this person has people that, they can reach out to. But if she's trying to keep it private and not really talking about anything, I know, perhaps, journaling it down, doing some creative, because we can all research everything, right? We don't actually have to have a certificate for everything. Life is, you're only going to learn certain things with, books and all of, with education, but wisdom and true wisdom, like my grandparents, they had a third grade education, but my grandmother had so much wisdom, right, that collectively she would say, it takes all kinds to make the world go round, those kind of things. So using that, she would have to know and really reach into herself, maybe do some mindfulness, um kind of, because if you research it, you're going to find that you can do journaling. You can do anything for your mindset, trying to get, how do you handle grieving? How would you handle these things? So research nowadays with Chat GPT, we can look up anything, as uh, Dr. Leslie Flowers had just said, you can research. She was looking it up. So how do we do that? And you can do that in the privacy of your own home, right? How to manage this. But I would, if I was talking to her, this is me talking to her, and hopefully she's listening. I would say, first of all, you know, I'm very sorry for your grievance, and know that you are beautifully, fearfully, wonderfully created. Know that right now what you're going through is real. And I would not say anything like this too shall pass or all of those things, but be right here present in this present moment with yourself, because a lot of this, especially I go through this a lot by myself in privacy. I understand, I completely understand what this person is trying to achieve is in a private setting. So, speaking to ourselves, like I said, journaling, trying to be in the present moment with ourselves of what, and being very realistic of what's really happening, right? The steps of grieving, the steps of death, what it looks like. Um, and then look at yourself in the present life, what you have to live for, what you have to give. All of those things I feel is very important to look at this time, especially in a time of grievance, because there's a lot of grievance counseling. um, if she's is able to reach out in a support group where nobody knows you, nobody can, that's another thing too. You can make a phone call, even, call a hotline, and the person on the other line doesn't know you. If she can reach out and do that, I think that would be great also. But a lot of self-talk. I do a lot of self-talk when I'm really trying to get over and pass a hurdle. So yeah, that's what I would advise, Dr. Marcia. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
and these are excellent advice because what and thank you, Karen. I welcome Karen right here. Karen Pascal. Joan might just be there too. I'm gonna look in my chat very soon. But prioritizing self-care is what Karen says. And she is has some experience a lot setting boundaries, practicing mindfulness, and dedicating time to personal well-being are very essential, and I'm very much agreeing with that. The next thing too, I want to that the point that you have raised, Margaret, that I want to inject here very urgently as a certified life and career and leadership coach is that we have to first of all look at the nature of the grief, the extent of the grief, because she might just require a therapist. And going to work and trying to mask it is not necessarily the best thing. You might need to put it out in the open, have some vulnerability, and let people know that you're not managing your loss well, and take some time off. In taking your time off, you want to be able to prioritize your self-care and your well-being. And so taking time off from work can also mean that you take some time off from your family also. You want to look at what you need when you need to your home and from you
And
are.
you're breaking up, Dr. Marcia. Can you hear me okay? Uh, Can you hear
You
me
might have,
okay?
I might have, you might have missed. Yes. So I'm saying, for those who have missed what I'm saying, I am also saying that you have to take the time off. So sometimes being private is good, and there are some things that you cannot be private about. So you might need to tell your workplace that the persons in your workplace who depend on you, that you are not managing your loss well, and so you're taking the time off. That maintains some level of privacy, and it also gives you time to cope in the ways that you are now realizing that you're not coping. You also want to express this vulnerability to your the members of your family who also depend on you, and get support from members to give you time to prioritize self-care and to navigate the grief that you're going through. Those are basic steps. And so the nature of your grief now, after you look into yourself, you will now know if you need to get help from a professional, whether it is a coach, a mentor, or a counselor or a therapist, depending on your grief. You want to also do some of those things that give you joy. So if it is that you are wearing there are some things there that your aunt might have given to you. You want to look at those memories. You want to honor those memories. You want to do the things. You want to do the things that you and your aunt love doing. You want to relish those memories, and you also want to look at what they might have want to have done or might have said to you as the last word, and you maybe want to honor that. So those are some of the ways in which you can deal with it and still feel close to the person and feel that you are actually fulfilling some of the wishes of that person. You also have to be realistic. If there are points that you just break down and cry, you don't need to feel guilt or shame because you're an executive female. You might need to just take the time off. You might want to close your door a little. You might want to take a walk. Those types of things, that because your grief is a natural response and it is gradual, and there is no set time for person to say you should have gotten over it by now and those things. So some persons, it takes them years and years, and but they have those coping mechanisms that you are requiring, and those are the ones I'm giving to you, because that's the nature of your question, that you want some coping mechanisms and you also want to know how to keep it private. And so I hope that that is how you maintaining your work life balance. I am saying that you need to take time out from work if you are not managing, and let go some of that heavy burden and what is reliant on you, and being all things to all men, and choose yourself and be all things to yourself at this time. And you want to do the same at work. You want to get that type of at home. You want to get that type of support. You want to allow family members to help you to do some of the things that you're required to do at home that would demand, and you need to give them the time. You need to ask them for the time. So this is what I need help to do right now as I'm dealing with this, as I'm managing this. This is what I want you to do. This is how I want you to respond. How This is how I want you to help me. So you don't necessarily need to have persons saying anything or so, but they are present. They are helping with your chores. They are helping you to meet your doctor's appointment. They are just taking you, even driving you where you're no longer driving yourself. So you take a time from driving and they drive you around, going to the beach, just doing, if you want to write, whatever it is, and you're allowed that time. Those are some of the mechanisms that you need to cope. And that is some of the ways that you can maintain your life balance while being private. And you can, of course, choose a coach, a mentor, a therapist that you feel you want to share that part of yourself with in depth, because those settings are very confidential and are very safe and secure, because what you say in those meetings based on our clause and our policies cannot be repeated unless there are some things. Some of us ask that you give written permission and you tell us the parts that you want to be shared with those who you want to share it with. So those are some of the strategies that I would give. And then you can also send me a DM and we can take it further. I do referrals. I am just like Leslie, there are certain things that I'm not proficient about. I am just speaking to you from a point of view of my certification and the boundaries of my certification, and the fact that I lost 4 family members in 1 month and 5 family members in a year. So I lost 4 of them, and one of them was my mother. All right, Margaret, do you want to add anything?
Yes, and I'm sorry to hear about your losses, Dr. Marcy. I know you've told us that, and you've been open with us, and you've reached out and you've told us, and that's the first step, right? I just wanted to add that in the professional workplace, HR, if you don't want to tell your colleagues, HR, that is what the human resources or human development is there for. And I'm glad that you mentioned taking some time off for yourself to process this, and to process everything that you're going through, because HR is there to, be understanding and give you that grievance time, or the time that a bereavement that you need also. And another thing that you highlighted that I really liked was that to do something that to pour into yourself, pour love into yourself and those around you that you love, at a time like this, to definitely tell them, hey, I'm not processing this well, because your family members can pour love into you at this time, some understanding, and because they're going to be concerned, right? So I love that you said that also. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much too. For those who are just joining, we are today. I had done a poll in my network, and I'm answering as many questions I can about high functioning depression. I'm answering the real questions that have been asked. And in the poll, I had asked persons to identify their question and what they really want in the answer, because I wanted to drill down to help as many as we can in this little session that we have. Our time will soon be up. I have just a few more, a little less than half an hour left. And so Curtis is asking a question here that I don't know if we can answer, but it says, is it really about grieving? Is it? So he said that it would depend for him. We are all different people with different memories. True. So if you, that's why we're focusing on the good memories, Curtis, the good memories. And so you would not be grieving so bad if it was bad memories. You know, we tend to shut, we have a scope in us that shuts out certain things. And so because we have had bad experiences with our family member or our parents, we tend to develop internal coping mechanisms that allow us to separate our emotions from long before the death of the person. That's another session that I would want to have. But you are right. Persons who are grieving, those who they genuinely love and miss and care about, goes through certain stages. And so the question you're asking, is the grieving really about the loss or deeper issues? It's usually about deeper issues, regardless of the relationship and the type of loss. So some persons will have regret because they had a run-in with the person and they didn't know that the person would not be around. And so it could have been resolved, but it was not. And that is a deeper issue. There are persons also who love it's about the fact that they lose this person who was so close and dear to them, who they could depend on for every little thing, who when they needed to vent, they could go to, when they needed advice, they could go to. Those are deep issues. So the loss in itself, the fact that the person is no longer available, is a terrible loss that has left a terrible gap in the hearts and also in the minds and the environment that the persons and that person existed. But if we move to the deeper issues, we look at the why the loss is so devastating. Why is it so painful? Why is it so hard to get over? And it depends on the connection and how meaningful and lasting it was, and how the person impacted the lives of those who are grieving so much, and how they served. And so the memories are so real and so personal that it pulls them into a state of not willing to accept that loss. And so you're right. It's really about deeper issues, always about the deeper issues. But the loss is what opens the floodgate for the deeper issues and the real issues. And when we coach, we bring them to the deeper issues and we make those issues come to the surface. And when it comes to the surface, we know help them to develop strategic actions and plans to overcome, to navigate it successfully. And we give them the time and we support them as accountable partners based on the time and what they say will help them to overcome. All right. So I hope that answered you, Curtis. All right. We want to go to the next question, and it says, what are the how can I develop a growth mindset and overcome self-doubt and imposter syndrome? So I need guidance on cultivating a growth mindset, building self-confidence, and overcoming negative self-talk and self-doubt. We're just gonna give them 2 points, Margaret, and ask that they actually send us personal DMs and that they actually do that session, their session, so they can get real answers. These are just touching it on the surface. So let's go.
Yes, I mean, that's a very good question. And Curtis Brooks also had a very good question as
Yes,
well.
yes.
Um, Yeah, because it's always everything is always a deeper underlying issue, right? That we have to deal with. And you brought up a good point of, how close are we to these relatives that we lost, So and that's also something to, realizing that we can still keep that relationship, within our hearts and in our spirit. But a growth mindset, this is something that I practice daily. On They say that 90% of our thoughts are the same every day, so you intentionally have to, in with intention, think of new things. Think of things that you've never even thought of. There's so much out there. The world is vast. You know, the experiences are limitless. You know, we can always think of new things. Perhaps something that you've never even thought of. This is, you know, it's funny because a lot of people, when they've gone to my events, they say, "Oh my gosh, there's so many doctors here," or "Oh my gosh, everybody's global." You know, there's so many people from different places because everybody has something to give, you know, and we can reach out, we can learn something new, you know, about, you know, everyone. However, when you also have to keep in mind when you're reaching out and you're learning about, you know, let's say you're trying to learn about the Cayman Islands, or you're trying to learn about Nigeria, or you're trying to learn about Kenya or Asia, Philippines. You know, you're trying to learn, you know, the culture. What are they like? You know, you can research everything. So now, when you're learning about other cultures and other people, you're actually learning about yourself. I always say that when you're reading the Bible's reading you, you know, the words, everything that, you know, when you're reading a book, you know, you're discovering. And this is what life is really about, is the discovery of things on a daily basis. So, you know, to be able to intentionally want to discover something new about yourself, you know, you will realize how powerful and how strong you really are created. We are capable of so many things, Dr. Marcia,
Yes.
and life and death is a journey. You know, everything in life is a journey. You know, my one of my beloved friends asked me, you know, what you know, what is the most important thing in life to you, or, you know, and I was like, that it has meaning, you know, and even in death, you know, I suffered my mom's loss, and, you know, now I'm orphaned, and then my dad's, and then, you know, there's so many people. So but I hold them within. You know, this is what works for me, is knowing that they're still present with me, because I'm keeping that alive. I'm keeping that memory alive. I'm, you know, every time that I look at the plants, or I start, you know, planting a new flower, or doing something, you know, we're keeping those things alive within us, and realize that, to me, they never left. So I feel that pouring love into yourself and trying not to believe the lies that your mind can tell you, that the
Yes.
self doubt, you know, don't self doubt yourself. And this is why I always constantly post, you know, about you, you know, and loving yourself. Truly loving others is loving yourself. Anything you do for others, you do for yourself as well. Like right now, Dr. Marcia, you
Very
know,
much so. Mhm.
that's what we're doing for one another,
Very
right?
much so.
Collectively. And everyone listening, you know, this is what we're
Benefiting
doing. So,
very much so. I look at the journey that life takes each of us on our individual path that has been established, and I look at how we many I did a post yesterday where one of my clients, when I asked her a question that was relative, she gave me permission to share it. She said the worst thing that could happen to her is to have someone insult her. And I now say the
mhm,
worst thing that could happen is when you insult yourself daily, in and out,
yes.
without even knowing. And so
Mhm,
the self doubt and the self thought that you're talking about, we must speak life into ourselves. We must support ourselves, and we
mhm,
must accept ourselves, our limitations, our strengths, and everything about us. And we must take the actions that would add value. So if there are things that I need to let go of in myself because I am the recurring decimal, then I need to let those go so I can be free and I can be happy to communicate. So I must know what triggers me and what trigger other people. And one of the things you need to ask yourself when you tell yourself the negative things and when you talk out to yourself is, am I insulting myself, and why? What was I created for? Is what I'm saying about myself true? Do I believe in myself enough so others can believe in me? And that will eliminate the lies that you are talking about and the lies that we tell ourselves. And that will
mhm,
continue to give us a mindset that is making us reach higher and higher. And so
Amen.
when we are positive, we reach higher and higher. So the Bible talks about pressing towards the mark of your high calling. When you speak positively to yourself, when you are aware of who you are and whose you are, and when you understand your why and how you are to fulfill your purpose, then you are pressing higher and higher to your high calling. Closer
Amen.
and closer. You're moving higher. I see a point that is made here by Charito that I want to flesh out just a little. And and just in case, just for clarity, these persons in my the these persons in my network that I actually questioned are actually Christian leaders, female executives, because that's the network that I really have. And so these persons, Charito says prayer is the number one answer to depression. The focus and depth of prayers count. Wherever and whenever it feels that the negative feeling starts to attack, come in, pray, pray, pray. A good therapist
Amen.
comes second and third and so on. And I want to dig into that a little because, Charito, I find that sometimes when you're overwhelmed, because the devil does not play fair and he does not stop when you're tired. He does not stop when you're overwhelmed because his desire is to throw you out. And so there are Christian persons who are praying and they don't seem to be getting the answers because God does not answer you in your time. He sees the broad picture and he sees everything. In that interim of waiting, of trying to overcome, of navigating whatever issues you are facing, you do need to get some assistance in the physical space, despite the fact that you're praying, because Christians do get helpless and can feel hopeless when things press on them so hard and they feel alone and they feel that God is just silent or he doesn't seem to be near to them or hearing them because they are not getting over what it is that they are getting over. And the more they pray is the more they feel that they are getting to a stone wall. And we have examples of Job
Mhm.
who God really trusted, and so he had to allow the devil to take them through that realm. And his friends were really unkind to him because they never understood it. And so while they have resilience within themselves, they do need a support system of like-minded people who will pray, of people who understand that when you can only cry out and not pray, they will pray for you and they will tell God what you want to tell him but feel so overwhelmed that you can't even speak because you feel that the burden is so hard you can only groan. And good thing about God is that he understands groanings. So I see the question that the person has asked and I understand the level of the question, and I'm agreeing that prayer is the first thing because I believe in prayer. I believe in prayer. And so for that reason, I want us to understand that in the praying, we also need to do some things for ourselves because God is not going to do for us
Mhm.
what we can do for ourselves. Margaret, do you want to say anything about that?
Amen. I totally agree with you. And I always say you have to know your worth. Once you realize what you're worth, this is how I value myself, and nothing and no one, no posts, no bad slander, no nothing can ever touch this, right? I was created by a creator that is a perfectionist, created higher than all of us, each and every one of us, right? This is what I believe, that he created the world, the universe, the animals, the vegetation, the fish, the wildlife, everything. But us as humanity are the biggest and greatest creation he ever created, from what he says. How could I think any less of myself would actually be insulting my creator, right? So, knowing your worth, knowing your value, putting yourself, nothing and no one, not even the enemy can touch you. No enemies can touch you. No bad foes, nothing. And some when people try to insult you, it's not, when you know your worth, it's not really them insulting you. It's them insulting themselves,
Mhm.
exactly how you said it. Because to me, that makes me feel sad because humanity doesn't realize how beautiful and how powerful we really are. we're able to regenerate, we're able to recreate, we're able to do so many things, right? And we are actually that beautiful and wonderful, but we've been taught in a society not to think of ourselves that way.
Very much
And
so.
so we need to reach out, and I agree with you 100%. Before we can pray, we must first believe. Before we believe, we must first know, right? So, and this is where the free will comes in, the free will to choose what we're going to do and what we're going to choose, right? Because he wants us openly, God wants us openly to be accepting, to be wanting, to yearning, right? And so, with that being said, we can't do any of those things unless we know who we are, what we are, whose we are, what we want, what our desires are, And so to for us to desire the best because we are worth it means everything. Thank you,
Very
Dr.
much
Marcia.
so. Karen, you seem to have listened to the next question, because your answer here says balancing authority and vulnerable. That's your topic. Female leaders may feel the need to project strength and authority, which can make it difficult to openly address their struggles without fear of judgment or perceived weakness. Listen to the question and make sure you type your answers in the chat, as Margaret and I attempt to do from our expertise and our experience. It says, how can I navigate the stigma of mental health issues in the workplace and find support without jeopardizing my career? Let me repeat. How can I navigate the stigma of mental health issues in the workplace and find support without jeopardizing my career? I need advice on how to disclose my depression to my employer or colleagues, find resources and support, and create a safe and inclusive work environment without feeling out of place.
Mhm. Very good question, and that's what HR is there for.
Yes.
There has to be confidentiality in place. And I understand this, because fear of judgment, you know, and people are going to look at you like, "Oh, you're crazy," or they're going to judge you. They're going to all of a sudden, the rumor mill doesn't take long to start, right? So I can understand that hesitation, but you have to strategically do this, especially in a professional setting. HR is bound by confidentiality, to keep that. And I would first begin there before I begin with colleagues. HR will give you that advice to say, hey, you can, they're going to tell you what and how to tell your colleagues, why you need this time in this space, what you're doing. And you have to do it, like I said, you have to do it in a way that nobody's offensive. You're not trying to put more work on them. There's a lot of variables there too, but I would reach out, in my opinion, to HR first.
I have a saying, it's a mantra for me. It's a powerful mantra that I use for my own life. To thine own self be true, and you can't be false to any man. The reality is, you're very correct. When you know yourself and you're able to trust yourself and believe in yourself, it doesn't mean that you do not have issues. It doesn't mean that you can't feel helpless sometimes. It doesn't mean that you can't struggle. You're not struggling sometimes with the fear, and that you're not absorbed to criticism and so on. It doesn't mean that. It means that you take all of that in stride and you deal with your authentic feelings that evolve when you have those issues, and you try to resolve them with whomever and with yourself, and you emerge stronger, and you emerge wiser, and you emerge more authentic, and truer to yourself. So you're going into direction of your peace, and you're walking in your peace. And so being able to, because you were genuine to people and you treated people the way you wanted to be treated when the situation was reversed, you now find it much easier to speak to those in your department, your colleagues, your supervisor, your manager, your CEO, and so on, as a leader or career professional. And they are more receptive because you had set that framework of influence. You had left the aroma of care, of respect and trust, and of authentic serving. you did not double touch anybody, you were just being yourself, it doesn't mean that persons will respond the way you responded, and give you the support that you give. But there are
Mhm.
allowances in your work where you can talk to people, you can share with people. And if there are no allowances, then you should be able to still say, I am not managing at this time, and so I need support or I need help to do this. So you don't leave your workplace, but you pull on all the resources and all the policies and all the guidelines and the code of ethics and so on that can give you that allowance to be yourself while you're dealing with your grief and still carry out your duties in paced, self-paced and manageable, and the small steps that will take you to your destination. And that's the advice I would give. And
Amen.
so sometimes it's not as easy, and sometimes it's a little easy. The guidelines, the technicalities are not as clear cut as you would want them to be, but they exist. And so you would spend time with someone who can guide you. You can go to your HR, which is what Margaret has suggested, and you
Mhm.
can also be rational and reasonable, because there are some persons based on our personality where something that could be solved in 2 days, we make it last 6 months. And so those types of rationales too have to come in, and accountability matrix sometimes kick in because we really have been unreasonable. I, as a leader of an organization, have persons who have casual leaves that they could take, and then they are also ill and they take every casual leave that they can take. And I say to some of them, listen, when you take your sick leave, if you run out of your sick leave, there are parts where you get part pay and there are parts where you don't get pay. So guess what? Leave some of your casual leaves for that time. If you really don't need it, don't take it. And so some of these things you have to advise people. And so Ronnie is saying, knowing your word. Welcome, Ronnie. And there are some other people in the audience that I
Yeah,
need to.
I see all the love
Yes, I'm
pouring
so
in.
sorry that I need to. Stephen, you're there. Ronnie's there.
Hmm.
I think
Michelle.
I have Michelle. Yes, we spoke
Yeah.
to Michelle. She came in
May
on the time. We have Tolo there too, and we have those who we
oh
are
yeah,
missing.
Tolu.
Please forgive us. Yes, but you're also there. All right. I want to put in two more questions very quickly. There, I can't do all of them, but I want to put in two more
Part two,
as
Dr.
we,
Garcia.
yes, we're gonna have a part two. So I want to just put in two more questions as we go. It says, how can I the one I want to put in, because today is my self-care Tuesday, and I want to answer that question after two in my post. It talks about how I can prioritize self-care. What are the most effective ways to prioritize self-care and make it a non-negotiable part of my daily routine? I need practical tips and strategies for incorporating self-care into my busy schedule, setting boundaries, and making self-care a habit.
Those
I
are
love
real
I
good
love the
questions.
questions. I love the
Yes.
questions. Yeah.
And because they're so realistic, right? Because we get busy and we put everything else first besides us. And it's funny, Dr. Mercia, I was just asked this question from a friend the other day. Like, how do you do this? How do you do that? Because you sound really busy. Actually, it was just yesterday. And I said, you have to do it with intention. You have to intentionally give yourself those 15 minutes for you when you first wake up. You have to, you know, you just have to do that. You have to just be, hey, this is my time. You have to be selfish with yourself because you're worth it. You have to say, I don't know what else I can say beyond that, is that you have to just purposely, intentionally do these things for yourself, to take that time to either journal, to go out to an infrared sauna,
Yes.
and do that, spend those $25. You have to treat yourself, do something kind for yourself on a daily basis, journal, tell everybody that you love, because this is how you set your boundaries, and this is how people will respect you, when you respect yourself and your time and you value yourself. My biggest thing is that I tell people, when I am actually doing a session, I tell them, this is what you do, is, if it will help you if you decide you're going to come first, so that you can come first for everybody else. And so now what's going to happen is, you're going to respect yourself, you're going to love yourself, you're going to pour into yourself, and you're going to come out 10 times more for everybody else. And how you do that and why you do that is going to tell them, and you just align everything. Okay, tell yourself the realistic truth of what is priceless, is things that money cannot buy. Humanity, time. You can't buy time.
Mm.
you know you can't buy, all of those things that money cannot buy are all of those things that I put in first. But that's a good question. Thank you, Dr. Marcia.
Yes, and I see a lot of comments here. You're worth it. It's definitely a priority. Exactly. I want to welcome Luz and our viewer from London. Thank you so much for taking the time. All right. I also want to add to those good points that you make. I do a self-care Tuesday, and I did some posts about how to make self-care a habit, or to how to set your boundaries. And some of the ways that I did, I tend to look at the unconventional ways. So I'm saying, when you're leaving work, you want to actually put on your phone screen something that takes you home, a memory from home, a picture of your child or your husband or whoever it is. And when you get into your house, you don't want to put your handbag on your table, your living room table or your dining table, or so. You want to take it out of the framework. You want to put aside everything. You don't want to just go into your kitchen, rush into your kitchen, because you want to have those routines that are embellished at home and those that are at your workplace. So you want to turn your phone off and so on, and you want to take off your work clothes, and then you want to settle in into your home, and you want to settle in with your family. You don't want to talk about every single thing that happened at work either. You want to focus on where you are now at home. You want to focus on winding down and those memories and quality time with your family. You also want, as you say, you want to have the tips and strategies for when you're in your busy schedule. You want to put what is urgent, what is important, and what is critical on your list. So you have a lot of things to do every day, but you want to put what is critical. If it is not done today, what are the consequences? And you want to do those things that cannot wait for another day. And then you want to actually not kill yourself for yourself. So you want to put what is urgent and important further down, and you want to see where those will fit. You also want, as I look at the question, for incorporating into your setting boundaries, you want to take your lunch time. A lot of people talk about working lunch. There can be no working lunch. And what I find is that work will always be there. And some things, and from a Christian perspective, some things that you find that you're not able to do throughout the day might just be God. It might just be God telling you that I have a better plan. And many times I find that work because you do in fact have a better plan. And so you want to focus on those types of things. So you set yourself, you don't want to miss your doctor's appointment either. You want to make sure that it's there because you are worth it. You want to do the things that you love doing also. You want to find joy in doing the things that you love to do, and you want to make sure that you do it throughout the day. So say, for example, there's a particular song that you love while you're having your lunch. Yeah, and you take your 1 hour, and you ensure that even if anything is falling around you, you take your 1 hour, because there are emergencies, there are things that are critical and things that are urgent, and you can't give what you don't have. And so you want to maybe play that music in your vehicle while you're going home or while you're coming to
Mhm.
work, to give you that type of strength and nourishment. So those are so many simple things that you can talk about. And you also need to have someone that you can vent with, so that you can talk to, who is balanced and practical. So you can call them at any time to say, I'm struggling with this, or I'm going through this, or do you think I did the right thing here? Or what should I have done differently? And so on. And you are open to their, and this is someone that you can trust. And you can also make sure, and I have left it for the last, but it's very important, that you have your meditation. You reach out to the person who created you and who have given you your wisdom, your creativity, your body, your skills, your talents, and you ask every day for direction and guidance before you go out. And you make sure you tap into him throughout the day for any counsel or advice that you would need, especially when there is a crisis or there is an issue. Because if you lack wisdom, you can ask of God. You cannot just trust yourself for everything, because we don't know everything. and you don't want to lean onto your own understanding. You want to acknowledge him so he can direct your path. The last question and the final question before we run out of time, because we know we have to go to bed. The next question is,
Mhm.
what are some, it's two actually, what are some effective strategies for managing symptoms of depression, such as anxiety, burnout, and imposter syndrome? And the next one is, how can I build a support network of peers, mentors, and mental health professionals to help me navigate my depression? All right, so we want to look now at what are some effective strategies for managing symptoms of depression, which is anxiety, burnout, and imposter syndrome. And we want to look at just two. So you're gonna give us two, Margaret, and I think I'd give two too. So that's the first question. Some effective strategies for managing symptoms of depression, and we had highlighted those symptoms before. We say
Mhm.
we Michelle had said sometimes we get lethargic. We had said that we get aches and pains. We sometimes get sick, so we get aches and pains, and we also lose our motivation, is what you have said, for those who did not come in at the start. So how can we now manage those symptoms?
Managing your symptoms, I mean, that's very real, right? You have to first begin with being very truthful, I think, so that you don't become, have that imposter syndrome. I don't think you would suffer from that if you're truthful to yourself. You have to have those hard conversations and those hard truths. I like to talk to people who will give you that critique. It's very difficult to listen sometimes. A lot of people don't like to be, critiqued, but when somebody is going to tell you the truth, you have a better insight, just, and you have to, like you, Dr. Marcia, for
Yeah.
example, I would reach out to you and I would tell you, where do I need to be refined? What do I need to work on? What do I need to? So, and I know you would truthfully tell me, you know, um, lovely but assertively, hey, professionally, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to work on. So I think doing that, I feel that if you're reaching out to professionals such as yourself, it's very important because you need an outside person to give
Yeah.
you those truths and have those hard conversations, and you have to really intentionally want to look at yourself. You have to look at that man in the mirror and realize and start then you start chipping away, whatever you feel is ugly, whatever you feel you need to work on, whatever you feel is a failure, whatever you feel, if you believe all of those things that people have, that learned behavior that has been passed down to you, that's what you need to work on to, not have that imposter syndrome, and to get out of that mindset, right? Because that's not real and it's not going to benefit you. You see, you want things that are going to be beneficial in your life because you're going to show up for your clients, you're going to show up for your customers, you're going to show up for your patients, you're going to show up for everyone, 100 once you start doing that. Another way that I personally do the mindset is to intentionally take that time for myself, intentionally, take those 15 minutes in the morning, either do breath work, meditation. You already spoke about meditating, in prayer, in speaking, and take that time because like I said, you're worth it. You have to know you're worth it. You have to put yourself first. And I love that you were talking about when you take a lunch, when you have a lunch break, it's very important. And a lot of people call it a work lunch, but you know, even those 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, all of those times, because time is something you can't get back. How many times have we said, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done, I should do more of this. The time is here. The time is now. It's present. Live in the present moment and start, making those realistic changes for yourself so that you
You
can show
can.
up for
And the
humanity.
thing is, Margaret,
Thank
you
you.
made a point there that I want to stress. You can't fool your body. That 30
Mhm.
minutes filled with distractions and so on, your body knows that you're not taking any lunch. The body knows because you're actually using up the energy while you're putting it in. Very important points you have made there. Very, very important points. I also want to realize that you are worth it. That's important too. You see, when you know that you're worth it, you put everything in its proper place, and you are organized and structured. You are focused, you are intentional, and you're purposeful. Very good points you have made there. And Curtis' point is very good here. I think we have to be prepared to intentionally, I'm stressing that word. I know you're stressing it, Curtis. Just put a yes in the chat if you're stressing that word. Minimize distractions, prioritize your distractions. Prioritizing your distractions, huh? And minimize distractions and prioritize your distractions. You have to be prepared to intentionally minimize
Mhm.
distractions and prioritize your distractions. Very much so, you know, to put them in their proper place, because distractions can be necessary, but you have to prioritize the necessary ones. Very good. And there's a comment here that I love. Michelle is gonna kill me. Michelle, you're gonna kill me. And I had to laugh. Put your phone down. Don't be scared. It will be there when you go back to it.
So
Ah,
true.
thank you
So
so much,
true.
Michelle. It's so true. And Ronnie is
So
one of those
wise.
persons, Margaret, along with you that you talk about that will tell you the truth that you can call on. Ronnie is one of those persons. Leslie is one of those persons. Lisa
Hmm.
and Charito. They tell you the truth from their hearts. Good people. And by the way, Ronnie has a devotional that everybody needs to get. I think they the pre-order is out, so we just have to get it for those who never got in on the pre-order. All right, and the pre-order gives you an autographed one. So we want to also look at, you know what I want to look at? Anxiety, how to get rid of anxiety and imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
Just taking a walk, doing your exercise or your meditation can go a long way to eliminate that type of anxiety. And the thing about it, and I'm stressing it, you see hormone imbalance and vitamin deficiency that is caused from missing your lunch and your doctor's appointment and all of that are some of the killers that we do not understand, the silent killers. So some of us
Hmm.
are slowly killing ourselves because we are overcommitting and overgiving to the job that is most times ungrateful. We are missing appointments to serve other people's needs, and we are doing everything. And when we collapse because we have slowly killed ourselves by missing our appointment, missing our meals, and getting high stress and allowing toxic people to always be around and trying to solve their problems to keep them silent and quiet and to kid ourselves that we are getting our peace, the peace delusion in our homes and in our workplace. When we die, it's 2 minutes of silence and life goes on. And those who we think could not do without us are actually doing without us. I know I sound a little harsh, but self-care and prioritizing that is very important. Knowing yourself gets rid of self-imposter syndrome, because when you know why you're doing what you're doing, and when you are objectively, honestly treating people the way you want to be treated in the reverse, the universe rewards you and God does not ignore it. To the kind, he shows himself kind. To the just, he shows himself just. To the forgiving, he shows himself forgiving. And so you actually can nurture self-care. You can actually do what you're saying. How do you manage your depression and your symptom? Two key things that we tend to ignore is the exercise and the moving from the sedentary table there, moving around, getting your activities in place, doing something that gives you joy and make you laugh, and also not missing your meals and making sure that it is balanced. That is Lisa's framework. You need to go to her lives. Lisa.
Hmm.
Lisa
Her
gives you the
menopausal.
balance,
Hmm.
especially to the type of persons we're talking about, the 40 and over, heading towards menopause, pre-menopause and post-menopause. The diet is important. The grains, the exercise, the water, dehydration can also cause you not to manage and make you feel anxiety, burnout, gives you chronic fatigue and also imposter syndrome. So you want to balance your diet and you want to do the exercise. Finally, we want to look at how we can build now a support network of peers, mentors, and mental health professionals to help us navigate our depression. How can we do that?
I want to say this. I want to say, come up, and this is what I tell some of my clients, come up with a safety plan. You have to put a safety plan for yourself in place. And what that looks like, and I'm going to make a post, but what that looks like is put up your red flags, put on your triggers. This is you being intentional for yourself and really looking at yourself. know thyself. To know thyself is to have the wisdom, right? So put in your triggers, put in all of those things, so that instead of being impulsive and speaking out or lashing out, you're realizing, oh, there's a trigger. Oh, a red flag just hit. If when you do a safety plan for yourself, you're bringing up your awareness, and then you're building some resilience there for the things that are coming at you, because it's like Dr. Marcia said, she beautifully said it. Life's going to happen. It's going to continue. It stops for no one, right? And people are going to be people. They're going to show up how they're going to show up. But how you show up for others, show up for yourself. I would definitely say put a safety plan in place for yourself. Thank you, Dr. Marcia.
Very much so, and I'd love persons to talk about it too in our chat as we go, because one of the things that I feel that needs to be done also, the safety plan for yourself. I was just looking for it to show it there, Margaret. In the safety plan for yourself, you have to put and I'm using yours because you say you're gonna do a post too, which I love. But in the safety plan for yourself, I want us to consider in that safety plan, putting persons in that plan that are like-minded, and
Hmm.
that will tell you the truth. Putting persons in that plan that are can offer guidance and support. Putting
Yes,
persons
ma'am.
in that plan that can encourage you while lovingly confronting you, because sometimes we need to be confronted. And also putting persons in that plan, family or friends that have experience and who understand what it means to navigate challenges, to navigate the type of issues that you are facing. You want to find those persons, and you also want to join a community, and you also want to get yourself into a coaching community, because as coaches we tend to have persons, and we tend to form a network or a group, a supportive group of persons who are going the same thing and who we offer that choice to. They want to join a group and so on. I have a coaching group, and we have it every month. It's March 20. It's a Part 2 Purpose Actualization Accelerator group. And persons come in, those who have passed through the group come back to share their strengths, their progress, and so on, and to offer support to persons who are trying to find their purpose and how it can be actualized. And so we go in, we look at so many things, and they come out of there, because you see that network, that powerhouse of network where people talk about their experiences and share, it gives life, it thrills, it ignites. And I encourage persons
Mhm.
to get into that group, and I started that group coaching on a monthly basis because of a lot of persons begging for it. They say, Miss, the one-on-one say, I need a group to continue this and to keep my momentum. And so I offered that to persons who did one-on-one, who said they wanted that. I reached out, and here we have a nice little community that is slowly building with persons of like minds who actually talk to people to each other outside of the group, and share what each other does. That's very, very important. The next one is coming up on March 20, and I keep advertising. And so that type of network needs to be there. You also want to look at creating in your safety plan. I don't know what you have, Margaret. As I said, I when you do your post, I'm just
I
saying
think
you
you
don't.
should do a post too, Dr. Marcia.
Yes,
I
I'm
think
saying you want to
everyone should
add
do their
those
own
things.
post.
Yeah, man.
And I
I
think
want
we're
to
on
add
fire
those things.
together.
Yes, I
You
want
and
to
I
add
make a
those
good
things.
team.
And you also want to add your purpose affirmation. You want to add your vision and your goals. You want to have that as a network on your refrigerator, on your wall, so you point to it every day, and you have that affirmation that you tell yourself, because after a while you want to understand that your network includes also your mind and your spirit and your body, and your body listen to what your mind tells it, and your spirit fortifies whatever you keep telling yourself. So you have that out there, and you want to understand that. All right. So we want to end. Any last word you want to give us, Margaret? It was those questions were very good, and I think this was a very good and beneficial session. So do you want
Yes.
to add anything, tell our viewers anything before we leave? Because it's
Yeah, I
really just high functioning depression, persons who feel that they have experienced it. I've asked those questions. I hope we did them
Mhm.
justice. But we will continue the last series. We'll end the series next week, Margaret. I hope you can join us with the rest of questions that are left.
I will do. I will. And I want to thank you so much, Dr. Mercy. It's always a joy to, collectively be with you. And I learned so much from you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening and joining Dr. Marcia's event. I hope you really did get a lot. I mean, she has a lot of wisdom to share. And, another thing that you pointed out was community. And this is what we are, right? We're a community. And community, I, I want to say a lot of people create division and they feel like one platform is a community and another one is a community, and that's not true. There's a unity in community and it goes everywhere. We travel everywhere and we're a community no matter where we go. So I appreciate the community who is here for us, even those that cannot, attend because of time zones or for whatever reason, work or whatever. But I just want to let everybody know that I appreciate you so much and that I'm grateful and humbled to be here right now at this moment with Dr. Marcia and with everyone here, and know that you're worth it. And don't forget, you're unforgettable. Thank you, Dr. Marcia.
Thank you so much. And the feeling is more than mutual. We want to continue to keep Tanik in our prayers as it comes closer to bury her father. And I want to thank every single one of you who joined. I might not have called your name because the discussion got so well on its way and got so intriguing and exciting and got so informative. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me on Tuesdays. Next week, we will do our final and the part three. We will continue to answer some questions. I'll put some more in the network and we hear from people. Those who want to join us on March 20 for your purpose and your part to your purpose, you can join. And please remember to go out and support our programs, our productions, our books, and also every one of us. Each one reach one. Thank you so much and have a great day.